What's going on, guys? Today we're going to take a look at the X68000 system by Sharp, and I'm going to show you guys a few things that you should know that are going to give you a better experience when you're using this system. So first thing I want to let you guys know is if we go into the system and you look at the bottom right corner, when you have one of my systems, one of my Hyperspin systems, usually on the right hand corner there you can see an icon, and that'll let you know if you need any special kind of controllers for that specific system. Most systems work with either any sort of joystick, arcade joystick like the X Arcade or extension, or iPack encoders, as well as Xbox controllers, but some systems require other kinds of controllers. So in the case of the X68000, you see a keyboard there as well as a Xbox controller. Now, normally that would mean that you can only use a keyboard and an Xbox controller. In this case, you can use a joystick like an X Arcade or an iPack or an extension. The reason I still left the keyboard icon there is because you will require a keyboard for certain inputs. Some games ask you questions and you have to answer yes or no. So you do still need a keyboard for some of the games, and that's why I went ahead and left it there. But you can use an arcade joystick as well to control these games. Now, with that said, there are about 70 games on here that will not work with an arcade joystick, and the way you will know which games those are is they will not have a bezel like the rest of the games. So those games start with a different emulator and they don't have a bezel, and that's how you'll know that those do not work with an arcade joystick. Alright guys, so I'm gonna get started here and I'm gonna show you an example of a game that launches with the alternate emulator that does not work with a joystick, and I'm also gonna show you guys how to get into the menu of that game. Or I should say of those kinds of games if you wanted to change anything. For any of you guys that are more familiar with the X68000, you can go ahead and go in there and make whatever changes you want, although you really don't need to. But let's go ahead and go into my favorites here, and I added a bunch of games here just to save time. So Gradius is one of them, and we're going to start that up. And like I said, you're going to see that it has no bezel, and it's kind of like a full screen display. So there is a game that will not work with a control panel, or arcade joystick type controller, but will work with an Xbox controller. As you can see here, I'm using one now. And let's say you guys wanted to get into the menu for this. The right joystick on the Xbox controller is going to be your mouse. See, if I start moving it around, it appeared, the cursor appeared. If you push it in, is left click. If you press on the right trigger, that is the right click. So if you go to tools, then I push in on the joystick, I go to options, I push in on the joystick. Here are all my options. Here's the joystick tab. Here's the controller Xbox 360. You can go to setup, and here you can change any of the configuration for the buttons if you want to. All right, so I'm going to cancel out of that, and I'm going to go ahead and quit this game. Alright, let's take a look at another game here of something you can expect from some of these games. And we're going to take a look at Akumaju Dracula, which is Castlevania. So we're going to start that up, and you're going to see that this one does start with the main emulator that you're going to play most games with. You have the nice bezels on the side, and it's going to be a nice full screen and 4:3 aspect ratio, the way it should be. And what I want to let you guys know about this game is right here. See, this requires an input from you that you're going to need to reach out for the keyboard real quick. And what you want to do in something like this is you want to press the number 1, and that's going to let you go into the game. And then another thing to know with some of these games, and this is an example of one, is if you notice the screen is black and you're also going to hear sound in the background, but there's going to be no graphics, and that's actually normal. That's just the way this game is. So if you notice that in any games, just be patient and it will appear eventually. And again, that's just the way the game is designed. And there you go, it started up. I know another game that requires you to press the number 1, I believe it's Barcelona Fighters. So just keep that in mind. If you run across any games like that, just reach out for the keyboard real quick and you'll be good to go. All right, I'm gonna quit out of this game. All right, so some games are actually mouse games. So let's go to Bradian, however you pronounce that. Start that up. Now again, this one's gonna launch with the other emulator, the one that plays about 70 of the games on here. And you can tell that it has no bezels, so that's how you know. This is actually a mouse game, so you can either use a mouse to play it or you can use the trackball. So for this particular emulator, you want to grab the mouse, quote unquote. So to do that, you press F12 on the keyboard. And now if you move your mouse around, I'm going to click on the screen, and then you can see that I'm controlling it with my mouse. You can use the joystick, the right joystick on an Xbox controller, but that's kind of hard to control with that. So ideally, you want to just use a mouse or a trackball for that. All right, so just remember for this one, I had to press F12 to activate the mouse in the game. All right, let's go ahead and quit this. All right, so some games you might have to answer a question like yes or no. An example of that is Wrecking Crew. So let's start that up. And there you go. If you notice on the bottom there, it'll just stay there. Obviously, it's in Japanese, but you can see that there's a Y/N there. So if I just go ahead and press Y on the keyboard, the game will start right up and you'll be able to play it. And last thing I want to show you guys is just to be patient with some of these games, because some of them do go through a long boot up process and it might look like it's not working, but it is working. An example of that is Fly Shooters. Let's start that up. And this game is actually going to go through the entire like boot up process, where it's going to do sound tests and video tests and stuff like that. And eventually it'll get into the game and you'll be able to play it. Now, I do have a version of this game on the system, and they're going to be back to back with one another. That starts with the other emulator, and that one will actually go right into the game. And I have that for a few of the games on here, and I wanted to leave them on there for you guys to have both options. I like to use this emulator. This is RetroArch. It's much prettier with the bezels, the correct aspect ratio. But if you're impatient, then you can use the other version of the game, and you will see that on the wheel, and that'll take you right into the gameplay. So let's just wait for this thing to load all the way so you guys can get an idea of how long it takes. And that is going to be about it for this video. I just wanted to show you guys a few of the things to expect with some of the games here, and kind of a general idea of how to go about playing them so that you guys can have a better experience with this system. And again, there's like about 500-600 games on here. Not all of them are going to have things like this. This is just what to expect if you do come across any games that might have any sort of similar behavior to these particular games here. All right, so we're in the game now. As you saw, it took a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. And you can go ahead and play at this point. And there you go. All right, guys, like I said, that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys on the next one.